Okay, good
Yun.
evening, morning, kung saan po kayo sa mundo. Ito na naman po kami, mga makukulit na podcasters. Kasama ko yung vlogger na friend natin, si Mark Gamboa, our partner in crime. And today we have another senatorial candidate, of course. Dun sa previous edition, kinausap po natin si Attorney Chel Jokno. Pinag-usapan natin yung judicial institutions natin, human rights issues, yung mga reforms na kailangan sa ating state institutions. Today naman po, we have a public educator, someone also very special. In fact, naabutan ko po siya nung nasa college ako. Millennial po ako, medyo mas matandang millennial. Naabutan ko po siya. He's a very forceful speaker, and I'll tell you, hindi ako madali magbigay ng compliments sa speakers, as someone who's a public speaker himself, right? He was very motivational at naalala ko every time I go into the UST area, nakikita ko yung mga billboards niya, among others. At fashionista din to, no? So if you want to have a fashionable senator, perhaps this is your guy. Let's see. All right, kasama po namin si Dr. Carl Balita. Maraming salamat po, sir.
Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks. It's really a privilege to be in your show. I'm here somewhere in the Cordilleras, and I'm glad that the signal is okay. Nice to be in your show. Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Maganda po yung background nyo. Nagustuhan namin yung mga plants and all. Maybe next time may pine trees na lang. Okay, Sir Carl. As usual, ang style namin, because this is a long form, hindi lang zingers ang hinahanap namin. But later on, we're gonna get quotable quotes and zingers from you. Si Mark na bahala magpa-controversial nuggets dyan. First of all, we want to get to know a little bit more about you po before trying to understand bakit kayo sumabak sa Senate race at anong gusto niyo mangyari dyan sa Senado natin. Hopefully after these elections, God willing, you got what you deserve. Well, in this case, can you say a little bit about your background po? Paano kayo pumasok dito sa review center? I don't want to call it business industry in that sense. And in what sense has that informed yung idea niyo ng leadership now and later on your hopes to join the government?
Well, I was a provinciano who went to Manila, taking up a course that initially I did not like. No, I took up nursing at UST.
Right.
Can you imagine my first return demonstration for IM injection? I collapsed. Yeah, my first child delivery that I assisted, I vomited.
Not yours.
Yeah. So that's what happened to me, and I was trying to distract myself from the course that someone else chose for me. I became engaged with student leadership. So naging presidente ng klase, naging representative. I was a student leader, and I became vice president. Then I became president of my student council. I was the first nursing student to run for the Supreme Student Council. That was my student days. But then I loved nursing when I learned about teaching it and the humanity in it. Then I found myself in a university, Pamantasan Lungsod ng Maynila. I was faculty there. Then I was pursuing graduate studies hanggang naging national reviewer ako. I published a book, and the book became bigger than life. Anywhere I go, makikita ko may gumagamit ng libro ko. Then I said, instead of me being paid to conduct reviews, I put up my own review center under my brand, and then the brand grew. I'm now in 120 cities all over the country. I have bridged the dreams of almost 1 million professionals already in various courses, nursing, education, of course, criminology, and now I ended up, before the pandemic, there were like 5 or 6 courses for offering. Now we have 37 courses to offer. So the pandemic became a blessing. As to my becoming a public person in the line of business, naging host ako ng DZMM ABS-CBN teleradyo program called The Radyo Negosyo. Kasi madaldal ako, naging guest ako doon. Then until na-realize nung host, who happened to be the Vice President for Radio, Peter Musngi, sabi niya, ang daldal nito, kailangan ko ng co-host. Then I became his co-host. And then the show became mine. So It's a 20-year-old engagement. I hosted the show for 20 years. And you can just imagine gaano karaming tao, specifically micro, small, and medium enterprises na interview ko in my show.
Doc Carl, ano po yung probinsya niyo? And by the way, yes, I remember back in the days kasi ako I was supposed to go into dentistry at UP Manila, yung unang target talaga gusto ng parents ko. No? At alam ko nung time na yan, nursing was somehow even more difficult perhaps to get into than even yung dentistry and other, medical courses, no? So naalala ko this time na pinipressure talaga ng parents na mag-nursing kayo, madali mag-Canada, mag-abroad, etc. Pero ano nangyari? Parang nawala yung fad na yan, no? Parang more recently, hindi ganun ka, no? Oo.
Paano nagkaroon ng oversupply? Sobrang daming nurses noon, all over the country. At yung nurses ended up, finding career somewhere else kasi hindi na sila ma-absorb ng ating health system. So nagkaroon ng glitch doon, bumagsak yung enrollment, nawala yung popularity ng nursing, pero recently bumalik naman siya. It's a cycle. It's always that way. No, dumadami.
Oversupply, supply
and demand. Pero you won't believe it. The world needs like 5 million nurses by 2030. Based on the World Nursing Report. So, kailangan talaga lumakas uli yung nursing natin because we want to not only supply the demands of the country but also of the world. And that's what we want to
Lalo
do.
itong, this pandemic, the pressure it has put on our healthcare sector, no? I can imagine. And of course, nag-aging din yung population. So that will also increase yung burden on our healthcare system. Ano pa yung assessment niyo dyan? Because I remember some of the numbers I saw on this issue of nursing. Medyo nakaka-shock yung gaano kababa yung bayad sa mga nurses natin dito, gaano ka-limited yung mga benefits sa kanila or protection na binibigay, at nakita natin marami sa kanila medyo nagko-complain na, no? Against yung mga supposed deficiencies of Department of Health. Kayo po bilang isang registered nurse, someone who has been involved in helping people to train in that profession, ano po yung basa niyo dito sa issue na yan?
Well, I don't want to say na before the pandemic hindi natin appreciate ang value ng human resource in health. No, like I'm not only talking about nursing. Now it took decades for nursing to get what the law said na ang kanyang salary grade is salary grade 15. The midwives na stuck na sila sa salary grade 9. I mean, I'm just talking about salary grades, but maraming na stuck up na sila doon. Alam mo, kokonti yung positions for medical technologies to the point na ang graduate ng medtech kahit license, tinatanggap niya yung pagiging technician para lang makapasok, makuha yung plantilla. Worse is in private sector. Alam mo naman, kung ikaw ospital, gusto mong magbayad ng tama, pero kung ikaw hindi nakakakolekta sa PhilHealth, saan ka na makukuha ng perang pambayad sa health human resource? Gustuhin mo mang ma-retain yung mga tao mo, maski pa anong gawin natin tumbling, maniwala kayo, hindi natin kayang tapatan yung sweldo na ino-offer ng UK and America. No, talagang pag kinonvert mo yon into dollars into peso, nako, you'll be surprised they're getting 6 digits. Comparably dito sa atin, sa government, we're paying our nurses salary grade 15, which is like 40 something, 30 plus to 40, ganun ang range, no? Depending on where you are. Pero alam mo, masakit dito is ang major issue dito hindi lang yung salary, lalo na yung take-home salary. The major issue is yung kanilang status. Most of them are into job order. Pag sinabing job order, that means sila ay contracted lang, contractual.
Right. Hindi regularized.
Hindi regularized. I mean, but they were offered a higher salary, good salary, like 40,000, pero you will have to sign a contract na ikaw ay contracted. Contractual ang status mo. Kaya alam mo ba, nung mag-end yung year, maraming kabado na nurses, no? Dahil yung kanilang contract hindi pa nare-renew. Siyempre, pero nung pumasok ang New Year, of course, alam na natin yung paparating ng Omicron, ayun, tumaas na naman ang demand para sa kanila. Pero, I mean, tayo man mismo, kung ang trabaho natin is contractual, nakakontrata ka lang for a period of time na hindi mo alam kung hanggang kailan, there's no security of tenure. Ang benefits are very limited. At towards the end of last year and in the early part of this year, nasabi ko, bukas na naman kasi yung every year kasi may cap, no? There is a deployment ban. Like last year, it was raised to 6,000 from what used to be 5,000. Ngayon, 7,000. I expect that 7,000 nurses, Filipino nurses, will be chosen by the world and will be offered good salary by the world. And malaking bagay yon sa ating healthcare system. Yun ang worry ko. And yun talaga. And by the way, Richard, I'm the first in the history of our elections, the first nurse and the first midwife to run for the Senate. And
that's why yun ang understanding ko po, no? And I know that one of the senators, I think Senator Villar, has made some colorful comments on issues related to the nursing for a while. I don't know kung gusto mong patulan, but we can discuss that. Pero gaano ka, I mean, you're a registered nurse, but you haven't practiced it.
I did. The
You did
practice of
practice it,
I did it. I did, and in the definition of the law, when you are teaching in the nursing education, it's a practice of nursing. It's a practice
Right.
of nursing. So I am practicing nursing. I was clinical preceptor. You won't believe it. Naging
Right.
clinical preceptor ako sa National Center for Mental Health. I've been teaching psychiatric nursing for many years.
Oh, right. Which is a
Yeah.
very, very important issue, lalong-lalo na ngayon dahil sa pandemic, mukhang tumataas yung
Nako.
cases ng depression and all sorts of mental,
Anxiety
problems.
disorders. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes po.
And after this, meron tayong marami sa atin magkakaroon ng post-traumatic stress disorder. Because like we came from a war. No, parang ganon, parang and things have changed. Masyado yung crisis. Crisis kasi by definition will impose an undue burden on our whole being.
Immunity
and such
system.
burden.
Yeah.
And such burden is supposed to be self-limiting. Kailan sa sobrang tagal ng exposure natin dito, masyadong maraming disruptions in the way we live and the way we survived, ano? And of course the grief of having lost our friends, our relatives, masyado tong pandemyang to, kaya talagang mabigat ito sa mental health ng maraming tao.
Doc, Carl, Mark, you can come in as soon as I'm just trying to get as much dun sa background issue. Sa tingin niyo ba kailangan natin ng specialized programs to deal with almost PTSD? I mean, this is collective grief situation. Lahat sa atin anxious in one way or another, economically anxious, family-related anxious. Yung iba gusto mag-booster, kailangan ng ibang vaccine or something, anxious. I mean, all of us have been going through very different kinds of anxiety. Hindi lang 1 month, 2 months, lampas na po sa 2 taon, ibang klase na po ito. No? So ano po sir ang assessment niyo, Doc Carl, no? As a professional and as also someone who's involved in dealing with the youth, with people on the front line, and a person in a position of leadership throughout the years?
We have to have a major mental health program. No, not only based on the mental health law that is existing. We even may need a SAR for it. No, we assign a SAR for vaccine, for etc. For alam mo kasi neglected ang mental health problems, no? I mean, pag ikaw nilalagnat, hingi kang paracetamol, 'di ba? Pag ikaw may LBM, bibigyan ka ng kung ano-anong gamot, 'di ba? Pero pag ikaw nagsabi sa magulang mo na nay, hindi ako makatulog 3 araw na. Sasabihin lang siguro ng nanay mo, kako-computer mo yan. O, di ba? Pag sinasabi mo sa nanay mo siguro, nay, may naririnig akong bumubulong-bulong sa akin. Sabi, kasi lagi ka naka-earphone. I mean, and stigmatized pa rin.
How do we break that stigma kaya? Kasi meron pa rin malaking stigma talaga sa society natin pagdating sa mental health.
And bakit nga may stigma? Yeah, tama si Mark. Bakit nga is this lack of education? Is this lack of appreciation? Is this yung pamacho culture natin na iano mo na lang yan, yung depression na yan, gano'n?
Hindi kasi siya behavioral kasi siya. Hindi siya lagnat na makukuha ng thermometer.
Right.
No, hindi siya LBM na nakikita mong ipina-flash mo sa toilet. No, it's a very subjective feeling. And most of the time i-ignore, nani-neglect yung symptoms. And the public does not understand kung gaano ka debilitating yung term no? Kung gaano siya nakakaapekto sa productivity. Alam mo, maraming naglalakad sa kalye, tahimik, nakatingin sa kawalan pero hindi mo alam kung saan siya pupunta at hindi nakakapagtaka kung may gagawin siyang from self-harm to affected na yung kanyang activities of daily living. It's really a major issue. Pag tayo talaga pinalad at alam ko naman may awa ang Diyos at sincere ako in doing this, we really need to sit down and look at the mental health issues of our people. Alam mo, ito pa ang pinakamasaklap dito. Kung kayo nasa probinsya, nandito ako sa Cordillera, at siguro magtanong ako ng 10 taon dito, tanungin ko kung nasaan ang psychiatrist dito. I don't know kung may ma-mention silang pangalan. Pero magtanong ako ng obstetrician dito at pediatrician dito, sigurado meron. O dentist dito, sigurado meron. Pumunta ako siguro sa butika dito at magtanong ako ng Thoracin or ng any common medication for mental illness na high in maintenance, long term, ay baka magulat ako dito na hindi siya available even in some major drugstores here. Pero this is the worst part. May hotline ba tayo to help people about this? Diba? Mental health may catharsis kaming tinatawag It's when you open up to someone na sometimes hindi yung friend mo, hindi yung family members mo because of the stigma, because of the shame, yung hiya, or baka hindi rin wala rin maitutulong sa akin yung kapatid ko, baka lalo lang bumigat ang dalahin din ng nanay ko. Pero wala kang mapuntahan eh. At saka pag sinabi mong galing ka sa psychiatrist at sinabi mo sa kaibigan mong ay nagkonsulta ako sa dentist, walang problema yon. Pero pag sinabi mo sa kaibigan mo nagkonsulta ka sa psychiatrist, expect mo yung reaction na hindi as the same as nagkonsulta ka sa dentist or sa pediatrician or sa obstetrician. The thing is, the society will have to be educated on the value of mental health. Kasi alam niyo yung mga kasama natin sa opisina na hindi maganda ang performance, 'di ba? Yung kasama mong sa trabaho na mainit ang ulo or laging absent or laging late or even estudyante na dati-rati may socialization yung school, ngayon nakaharap sa computer, 'di ba? Ang dami, mabigat masyado 'to. At sabi ko nga, ako tatlo yung kino-consider kong biggest impact of the pandemic. Number one is on the mental health. Okay? Ang second ko is on the environment, no? At ang pangatlo ko is on learning, no? Yun talaga ang major concerns ko. Halimbawa, sabihin ko, pag-usapan natin ng mental health, ang laking issue nito. Pero alam mo, kung titimbangin natin yung masks, face shields, PPE, syringes that this pandemic cost Mother Earth, nako, you wouldn't imagine how much waste we have created. Alam mo, yung na-mention ko pa kanina, yung other concerns, no? After this pandemic, mas marami pa tayong haharapin ng mga issues, yung learning, yung naging gap to learning. Alam mo, yung mga bata natuto ba talaga sila magsulat? Yung kinder to grade 1 to grade 2, natuto ba sila magsulat? Natuto ba sila magbasa? Paano yon? Yung graduate, meron ba sila ng competencies? Di ba? Lalo na yung mga skilled profession like kami sa nursing. Yung medicine, kumusta sila bilang mga doktor? Tumuloy naman, may graduate. So, ang dami-dami natin kailangang harapin. Kaya nga, ako, alam ko pupunta tayo mamaya doon, yun yung nagtulak sa akin kung ba't ako nandito sa magulong mundo ng politika.
Right.
Pero
right.
I don't want to be called a politician, no? But I just want to be in public service because I'm a professional, you know.
Yun nga, kaya gusto namin abusuhin yung side mo na yung public servant mo bago natin pag-usapan yung politika because that has
That's correct.
Yes,
Richard, if I may just say,
yes, please.
Ang problema kasi sa kultura natin is marami tayong ayaw pag-usapan sa dining table. Okay, like have you ever talked about sex education on the dining table?
No. That's the last place you
diba?
think about it.
Diba? Pero kita mo, I mean, basic anatomy and physiology. Comfortable ba yung mga babae na nagminarke? Yung first menstruation? Were they prepared for it? Napag-usapan ba sa bahay yan na, oy, anak, 12 years old ka na. By the time you're 13 or 14, magkakaroon ka ng menstruation. Hindi natin napapag-usapan yan. Or some of the guys, for example, we were never asked if we want circumcision or not. No? Diba? At a certain age. Kasi marami tayong tabu dun sa dining table where family gather to have a good conversation, a family conversation. Yung mental health, ganun din eh. And sometimes, most of the time, if you're not okay, you're not comfortable to even express or show people that you're not okay. And what we don't realize is that it's okay to be not okay.
Merong shame, no? They feel sometimes, may shame.
Yun yata yung Korean Netflix ba yan? It's okay to
That's a title. It's a beautiful title because it's a message to the world. In fact, na it's okay to be not okay. In fact, ano namin yan? It's a mantra. Right. It's a mantra in public health. I mean, in mental health, no? That it's okay to be not okay. And someone out there is willing to listen to you. Pero ito matindi dito, Richard and Mark. When somebody comes to you, pag may pumunta sa'yo at nag-express na hindi siya okay, what are you bound to give? We are bound to give advice. Right? We are bound to give advice. But did you know that advice is not therapeutic? Advising someone is not gonna help.
Dapat makinig lang. You just have to listen.
You just have to listen. In fact, pag ikaw, minsan tagapin natin ito, practical to. Pag may nagsabi sa yung kaibigan mo na, Tol, may problema ako eh. Wala yan. Tara, inom lang tayo. Tara, kape tayo. Ganun lang. What do? You ignore. You belittle the feelings Okay. Pero sasabihin pa, tapos nagsabi, kasi naman ganito, ikaw naman kasi, ganyan-ganyan. Ang ending, nasisi ka pa. I mean, it's not common. Unlike kung may lagnat ka, alam na natin pag may lagnat ka, magpunas ka. Uminom kang paracetamol, uminom kang maraming tubig para huwag ka ma-dehydrate. Alam na yon. Pero itong part na to, marami sa atin mali ang approach. Okay? And advising seems to be what is most accessible doon sa mga taong nilapitan. Pero ang dapat doon, actually, hayaan mo siyang magsalita na magsalita, hayaan mo siyang umiyak, hayaan mo siyang sumigaw kung kailangan. But don't tolerate violence, don't tolerate self-harm. Okay? Pero ang maganda dito, pag nag-express ang taong yan, hayaan mo siyang mag-discover kung ano yung options and alternatives and solutions na available sa kanya. Kasi the moment you advise, you reduce the empowerment of that person.
Right.
Hindi mo siya in-enable eh. Pero gano'ng karami, recall. Pag may lumapit sa iyong kaibigan, anong usual response natin? We give advice. Diba? So it's also nice that we're talking about this because sa dami ng nanonood sa inyo, isang paalala lang po. Pag may lumapit sa inyo, just be the shoulder to cry on.
It's okay not to advise. It's okay just to bear witness.
To listen,
right? Just to be there. Just to be there for the person.
Don't even advise. And you know, if the person doesn't want to talk, at sabi niya, ayoko may kausap. O, di, wag mo ko kausapin. Dito lang ako. Because it's the presence. Your presence in that situation is a very reassuring presence that somebody is there to listen. For all you know, later on, pag sabi niya, ayoko, umalis ka, ayoko may kausap. Just sabi mo, okay, dito lang ako, tol. Hindi ako alis. Magugulat ka dyan, mamaya. Iiyak na yan. Mamaya, mag-open up na yan. Hayaan mo lang. Ang tawag doon, catharsis. Gagaan yung pakiramdam noon. At hindi kailangan sa session na yun natapos ang problema. Pwedeng inilabas lang niya yon. Right. Pero ang kailangan nating explore, anong gusto mong mangyari? Anong pwede mo magawa?
May roadmap.
Oo, may roadmap ka. Saan ka pupunta? Anong gagawin mo? And by the way, I want to take advantage of this. Of course. If somebody expresses an intent to harm self, commit something that would harm the self, you have to take it seriously. At kailangan alam natin kung hanggang saan yung kaya nating pakinggan because at certain point, kailangan mai-refer mo siya sa professional. O kung sa may lagnat, hindi kaya ng paracetamol. Right. Kasi hindi na gumagana yung paracetamol, hindi na pwedeng punas-punas, hindi na pwedeng tubig-tubig at saka Skyflex at Royal. Hindi na kaya. Di ba? Kailangan mo na siyang i-refer sa professional. Right. And there are professionals out there. There are trained psychologists. There are psychiatrists who are trained to deal with these kinds of situations. And some of them are biochemical. Hindi pwedeng puro conversation. Right. Because there are medications that can be prescribed.
Kasi may imbalance dun sa mga certain chemicals, hormones sa body nila.
Yeah.
So you need to have intervention.
Actually, yung hormonal changes na nangyari sa atin ngayon is because of the disruption.
Right.
Wag ka lang matulog ng isang gabi. Sa totoo lang, mapuyat ka lang, yung hormones mo affected na tomorrow. How much more ngayon, talagang sobrang dami nating disruptions in the way we live that even our hormonal, our endocrine system na-disrupt din.
Right. Doc, what is the state naman of the profession? Dun sa supply side naman, yung people are getting the training in psychiatry, in psychology, people doing therapy. Kamusta naman yung side na yan?
That's the sad part. We still lack the specialist for it. Especially in this time and age, we lack it. I wish that nursing will be quick, will be fast on developing the psychiatric nurse specialist. Kasi may mga nurse specialization program sa ibang bansa na dito sa atin sa Pilipinas wala pa. Because nurses are trained for therapeutic communication. Meron kaming ilang units of psychiatric nursing. Nag-rotate kami sa mga psychiatric setting. Pero yung specialization in it, hindi pa siya in place. But there are organizations that are already pushing it. Meron tayong mga psychologists. Kaya lang, alam mo, ang psychology as a profession, very delicate. They have to show practice. They have to have parang apprenticeship so that they can take the board. From psychometrician, yung nagbibigay lang ng mga psychological tests, they level up to become, psychologists. They have to take a master's degree. Kasi very, very dangerous ang mental health. Sa some doctors naman who would like to proceed with psychiatry, they have to parang a postgraduate nila yan, specialization. until they become diplomates and fellow of the Psychological Society and Psychiatric Society of the Philippines. May mga specialization, and not every doctor is actually trained to deal with mental health, mental illness. Actually, not every nurse, not every graduate of psychology actually is entitled to it. Yung licensure, kokonti ang kumukuha, mababa pa yung passing. So ang aking proposal dyan is we have to provide for more scholarships for them. More scholarship, more, more encouraging programs para we take that road.
Hindi siya Doc Carl, again, sorry for cutting you because we can go on forever on this, but of course we have other questions for you too. Lalong-lalo na we're talking in the context of elections. But the other thing I want to talk about is this. For me, this is a myth because I've seen the numbers with WHO and other relevant numbers. Parati na sinasabi ang mga Pilipino ay masayahin, tignan mo yung mga surveys ng subjective happiness, mataas tayo. But actually, if you look at a lot of more robust surveys, yung quality of life index, for instance, usually in Pilipinas doesn't rank that well because you're looking at more objective methods of assessing yung yung well-being ng tao. At in fact, if you look at, for instance, cases of suicide, for instance, or anxiety-related disorders, etc., medyo mataas ang Pilipinas at tumataas ito in recent years, no? With, of course, with digitization of the economy, yung stressful yung lifestyle natin, etc. So for me, malaking myth yan, which I think is preventing us from having a proper conversation about this issue. And takot ko is this can get out of control if we don't do something about this false myth of the happy Filipino no matter what.
Happiness kasi is highly subjective. I have to tell you that go to the squatters area, you'll find a lot of people there smiling, laughing, enjoying life compared with those in fenced subdivision na parang ang lulungkot ng mga bahay nila, no? Not to compare, but happiness kasi is highly subjective. Pero alam mo, ako what bothers me is some data that are available. Like for example, yung the PISA, akala mo ang PISA hindi lang niya mineasure yung yung English, yung language, mathematics and science capability of our children. Meron siyang mineasure na yung failure, yung mga ganon. And do you know that 70+ of our children studied at the time were afraid of failure. And this explains why not many Filipinos are entrepreneurial. Why is my answer related to it? Because even academic performance is affected by those. Ang dami namin natin i-consider na data, but we don't want to be paralyzed by the analysis of those data. But at the end of the day, our economics, for example, are the poverty level, and other indicators are very challenging to interpret. But it all boils down to poverty. For example, did you know that the malnutrition rate in the country is very high? Like 1/3 of our children are malnourished.
And affects your brain development.
It affects your brain development. Important. And I'd like to trace that back to the fact that malnutrition did not start at birth. Actually, it's intrauterine malnutrition. And, the development of the brain is fastest now actually in the intrauterine life and in the fetal period. Pero kita mo, pag hindi siya na-nurture, then we send children to school. More than 50% of the children did not have a good breakfast. Think about it. And 25% of schools in this country do not even have potable water. So now, provide classrooms na, then we blame the educational system. So anong gusto kong sabihin sa'yo is we have to go to where the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is really poverty. People not being able to support their minimum basic needs. Which is why I like my president. Because MBN guy, minimum basic needs guy si Isko Moreno, na to the point na ang gusto niya makita is yung what's most basic. Like for example, housing, Housing, alam mo, merong tinatawag na Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you still remember your psychology class.
Self-actualization yung pinakamataas.
Self-actualization nasa taas, pero nasa baba nun is, di ba, the
Food,
physiologic
sex,
needs.
yung mga ganun.
Yung ganon, di ba? Pero look at this. Housing is basic need.
Right.
Ang sunod dun is safety and security.
Right.
Housing provides safety and security. Ang sunod dun, love and belongingness. Where do you belong? Where do you feel loved? At home. Ang susunod dun is self-esteem. Self-esteem is self-worth. Diba? The house where you live provides for that self-worth. And self-actualization is when you maximize your potential. Yung 5 levels na yon, na-hit siya. Now, let's go to food, for example. Kaya ako, sa totoo lang, Richard, the root cause of all of these data, whatever you look at, is poverty. You see? Masaya sila, but the authenticity of that happiness is something in question.
Yep.
Alam mo, iba kasi yung contentment, iba yung being provided for your needs. They may just feel contented. Kasi huwag natin kakalimutan, may learned helplessness. You know? When you learn that helplessness, it's a theory, you know? Learned helplessness is you feel helpless and therefore you accept whatever the circumstances are. Then,
medyo fatalistic na. Tanggapin mo na lang. Ito lang talaga.
Tanggapin mo na lang. And remember, the bahala na is bathala na. The root word of bahala na is bathala na. It's a surrender. Leave it to faith. Yeah. Kaya ang dami-dami nating issue. And I think, but you know, for 20 years of my life, I've been on radio. And you know naman ang target ng radio, ng DZMM, is really that.
Right.
But, you know, I felt happy for the past 20 years that every Saturday, I'm giving them hope. You know, when you give people that hope, they create the vision. You know, that vision is the ideal state of the future. When they have the vision, you know, if you know where you're going, you may find a way to get there. Yun eh. Pero without that vision, where will you go? Sabi mo kanina, narinig mo ko sa motivational speaker. I was asked by a foreign, in a foreign talk show, and asked me, Carl, how do you motivate? And sabi ko, you know, motivation is simple. You just have to connect 2 dots. First dot is the dot of the present, and that present is you make the person feel and appreciate that my present is blessed. I am blessed. It's a beautiful life. I'm alive. And the next point you have to identify is the ideal state of the future. There's a beautiful future that awaits you. And what is the shortest distance between 2 points? It's a straight line.
Straight line.
Right? The problem with many people is that they don't value what they have. And they're not happy because they're comparing themselves with other people.
Right.
And when you start comparing yourself with other people, you will be too busy counting your own blessing because you're counting somebody else's blessing. I mean, diba? When you're too busy counting the blessings of other people, you don't have time anymore to count your own.
Lalo ngayon sa age of social media, my goodness, lahat ang gaganda nila,
the
lahat
display culture.
Lahat may bagong kotse. That creates anxiety, right?
The display culture. Ngayon, yung motivation, the ideal future that comes ahead, that awaits you, mahirap i-define ngayon kasi the uncertainty is very high.
Right.
Okay? Now, how do you motivate them? You have to start with now. What do you have now? Your glass is half full rather than half empty, but it's the same glass. But I want people to see that, you know, I don't just tell people, hey, your glass is half full, not half empty. I tell them, hey, your glass is refillable. You know, your glass
bottomless
is
bottomless.
It's bottomless refillable.
Nice, diba?
You know, when you give people hope, of course, ang faith, walang problema eh. Ang faith, magaling tayo dyan eh. Pero yung hope, minsan, nawawala tayo dyan eh. Kaya nga sabi mo, kahit naman sinong iboto mo, pareho rin yun.
Yung sense of agency, no? Yung sense of agency, very important yun. That you can make a difference. That if you get certain things in line, meron kang impact na magagawa sa mundo. No? I think that sense of agency is minsan kulang sa ating kultura.
Yeah. Actually, kukumpletuhin ko yung tatlo. Sinabi ko na yung faith, we're very good at it. Yung hope, it's something we can actually derive from appreciating what is in the present. It's really appreciation. Appreciative inquiry. Get deep into your blessings. What you stand for, what you will wake up for tomorrow. At yun naman, pangatlo yung love. Faith, hope, and love. Tumasan.
Yung mataas tayo sa love.
Especially now. Alam mo, that's where, Richard, that's where the hope is coming from.
Right.
You know, I don't want to sound very academic, but it's really basic. When you have faith, hold on to it. Find that hope somewhere. Hope comes from, the possibilities. The impossible looks impossible before it's done. And the third is love. Don't forget that you feel love and that you can give love. There are two things that drive people to action. One is fear, the second is love. Lahat ng ginagawa natin could only come from fear or love. Now, ask yourselves, what would you choose? That you act for love or you act for fear? I would love to act for love. And then wake up in the morning and ask yourself, para kanino ka bumabangon? Well, it's a coffee commercial, but that's derived from a beautiful theory called appreciative inquiry. Right. You discover your life-giving force. Ang tawag namin doon. It's your life-giving force. Ano yung nasa buhay mo na dahilan kung bakit ka bumabangon? Then just think about it. And then you will be energized. You have to discover what you have and what you value most. Then proceed to design that future and make sure that you accept the fact that the destiny is yours.
Right. I really love this one. Na-therapy ata tayo ng libre. Meron pa kayong plan sa likod and all. This, I really feel common. But I want to talk about another thing, Doc Carl. No? Entrepreneurship. It's something you mentioned a while ago. It's something very integral dun sa background nyo, and I hope this is something that you want to bring into public governance at some point, yung sense of innovation, sense of pushing the boundaries, bringing new ideas and new models of dealing with problems. Paano kayo pumasok dyan sa entrepreneurship? Because a while ago, nakita ko bakit kayo nag-nursing. Hindi ko maintindihan ba't di nyo gustong nursing kasi I can see that inherent instinctive compassion in you, no, as someone that you see in anyone within the medical profession. So mukhang talagang nurse by heart kayo. But at the same time, you're also an entrepreneur, no? You know how to talk. You give the good motivational speech. I can attest to that. At saka I'm sure our audience now ma-appreciate din nila yan. How did you get into that? At bakit mahalaga yan sa Pilipinas?
Well, part of the vision is the comfortable life, the life that you are in full control of. I've always loved to be working for my own dream. And that can only be achieved if you are an entrepreneur. Because if you are an employee, you're working for somebody else's dream. Diba? So, and ako nung nasa university ako, I was a permanent faculty. I was offered deanship at the age of 26. Was going to 27. I would have been the youngest dean probably. But when I realized that I was working for somebody else's dream, and that the direction of my vision is not heading there. Sabi ko, there's nothing wrong being permanent faculty. There's nothing wrong being dean. These are very prestigious status. But if it's not something where I want to go, then I should change the course. And I took the road less traveled by. And to me, entrepreneurship is a very challenging life, no? It's a very challenging journey. Alam mo, ako nga, sa totoo lang, yung mga gamblers, yung mga sumasali, yung mga addicted to gambling, I want to talk to them. I want to teach them that, hey, you're already risk takers. All I have to do is to put a little science and call it calculated risk taking. Because if you're
my
math, no? It's a beautiful life. I'll tell you, it's a beautiful life. It's a challenging life. It's a life that you're in control of. It's a life full of opportunities beyond limits. It's a life that challenges creativity and innovation. It's always all about continuously improving what's already there. I'll tell you, it's a wonderful life. And I discovered it by necessity. Necessity is the mother of inventions, right? So I thought
marami alaga.
I thought I will not be able to reach what I want to reach just by counting the salaries and doubling my income and making sidelines. Then I realized, wait, let me put up something. Then until I realized that by doing business, you're building a legacy. Like, hello, Carl Balita Review Center is Carl Balita Review Center. Kaya ko siyang ipamana sa anak ko. No? Yung PhD ko, yung master's degree ko, yung licenses ko, hindi ko pwede ipamana sa anak ko. Pero yung brand ko, yung legacy of the business that I build, that I am building, that I built, pwede sa mapunta sa kanila. So it's a beautiful option.
And Doc Carl, ano masasabi niyo dito sa entrepreneurship culture sa Pilipinas? Anong kulang? Anong pwede natin improve? What improvements have already been undertaken base sa observation niyo?
We have to improve the way where the ease and cost of doing business. You know why? Kung makikita ng isang bata na madali lang ang buhay nung magulang niya sa pagninegosyo, susunod siya sa yapak nun eh. Alam mo yung kapitbahay mo na nag-abroad, na nakapagpatayo ng bahay, yun ang nag-motivate sa'yo para makapagpatayo ka rin ng bahay. Para mag-abroad ka rin, para makapagpatayo ka rin ng bahay. Bakit yung mga magsasaka, yung mga anak nila ayaw maging magsasaka? Nakita kasi ang hirap-hirap ng buhay nila. No? Pero kung makikita natin na yung magulang mong magsasaka ay nakakakuha ng tulong sa gobyerno, gumagamit ng technology, nagdidilig ng palayan niya, ang ginagamit niya ay, nag-fertilize ng palayan niya, ginagamit drone. Diba? O nagdidilig ng farm niya, ginagamit drone.
Parang
tapos,
vlogger yun may drone.
Parang gano'n, may drone. Yun ang sa ibang bansa, di ba Richard? O kaya, ngayon, pag ang nakita niya na yung parents niya, nagninegosyo, nagtitinda sa palengke, pero ang comfortable ng buhay, hindi masyadong namumroblema, the ease and cost of doing business, pag napadali natin, will be very encouraging for the millennials and the Gen Z. And the beauty of the Gen Zs and the millennials being entrepreneurs is that you are purpose-driven. Not my generation. Your generation is a purpose-driven generation. Malalim kayo eh. Matindi kayo sa purpose because you are a very informed generation. And you know what? Ang dapat nating i-improve dito is on how we are enabling our micro enterprises, which is 89% of the businesses. You know why? If the 89% of the businesses are perceived to be enabled and supported by the government, oh my, I'll tell you, the young people will choose to be entrepreneurs and contributory to the growth of our economy from in the countryside, in the rural areas. Yun ang dapat nating improve. Education, nandiyan na sa K-12 eh. Ang entrepreneurship is now in the K-12 curriculum.
Right.
Diba?
Itanong ko lang din, Dr. Carl, kasi diba nakasama yun dun sa parang agenda ni Yorme na gusto niyang patulungin yung sa MSMEs, yung DICT, yung DTI, and at the same time yung DOST. So ano ba ang mga pwedeng gawin ng mga ahensya na yon and nung national government na din to help our small and medium enterprises, yung mga ating mga negosyante?
Ako susulong ko yung Micro Enterprise Commission. It's not to add up another bureaucracy. Pero parang sa orchestra yan, kailangan may hawak ng baton. You see? Wala siyang ipoproduce na sound, pero siya yung mag-orchestrate. So it becomes the bridge of the micro enterprises to become small. Kaya pag small na siya, tsaka mo na siya galawin. Ang tawag ko nga dito, inole me tangere, the micro. Don't touch the micro. Just support them. Alam mo, ang ganda ng platform na yan ni Yorme kasi pag pinagsama-sama mo sa isang agency, yung mga yon, binanggit niya yung DTI, of course, sila naman ang talagang premier dyan. Ang DOST, napakaraming technology available for them. Ang DITC, because of the digitalization and yung e-commerce, etc. Nandiyan ang Department of Agriculture. Huwag natin kalimutan yon. Even, alam mo yung OFWs, meron silang OWA, meron silang ang daming agencies who could help them. And the private sector. Alam nyo, pag na-orchestrate yung Micro Enterprise Commission, tapos nandyan ang financial institution that will provide them capital, tapos nandyan ang technology, nandyan ang market support ng DTI, I'll tell you, ang gagaling natin, Mark. Ang gagaling ng Pilipino, ang innovative natin. Napaka-creative natin.
Ang kulang lang yung central organizing principle. No? Kasi alam natin sa Japan and other countries, marami rin silang MSME. Pero ang ginagawa ng government is pinapasok sila dun sa supply chain ng mga mas malalaking company. So you have a situation whereby halos yung sobrang malilit ng company mo works almost with Toyota or it works with Honda. So at the end of the day, it's an organic process kung saan all these small, medium, and massive conglomerates of Japan work together for national development. So we have these models in other countries. So ang kulang lang talaga yung parang a coach to bring all of this talent together. Kung tama sabi niya, andun yung mga talents, pero yung coach ang kailangan to just bring them together and that's where papasok yung government.
Correct. The baton. Yung sasabihin lalapitan tapos sabihin, dito ka. By the way, I have biases na industry. Number one, bias ako sa technology startup. Nako, Yan ang the language of the future is technology.
Fintechs.
The now and the future. Yeah, papunta tayo dyan. Number 2, bias ako sa social enterprise. Yung mga negosyong sustainable, concerned with the environment and so on. Bias ako sa service business. Alam mo yung mga, sa totoo lang, you won't believe it. Ang kinikita nung nagmamanicure at yung nag-go-home service ng massage spa, ay, maniwala ka. Magulat ka, natalo pala yung clerk sa bangko. Yeah.
Again, lalo maraming tip.
Oo. Yun ang gusto kong yun ang gusto kong palakasin kasi yun yung nasa grassroots, no? Maganda na yung may project tayo dating one town one product. 'Di ba sa Thailand may ganyan. One town one product. Itong munisipyong to, ito lang ang gagawin niya. 'Di ba? Ginawa ni Mang Inasal yan, ha. Meron siyang inampon na isang third class municipality or fourth class municipality in Iloilo. Alam mo ang gagawin lang? Gagawa lang sila ng barbecue stick.
Ay, stick.
Di ba? Alam mo yung
talaga.
alam mo yung community na yun, wala silang ginawa kundi barbecue stick. Alam mo nag-e-export na ngayon ng barbecue stick. ang daming opportunities talaga. Alam mo, ang kailangan lang kasi yung galing doon sa sektor na yon. Alam mo bakit si Yorme magaling sa programs para sa mahirap? Diyos ko, sino bang masihirap pa sa kumain ng pagpag? Naranasan niya yun eh. Alam nyo, saan ba ako galing? Yung sektor ko, galing po akong health sector. Galing po ako education sector. Galing ako sa micro sector. Yung negosyo ko, Richard, you won't believe it. I started with a table in Moraita. Just a table.
Right,
I rented a table space in one of my friend's company. Doon ako naglagay. I had one staff na taga-sagot ng phone. I have one staff na taga-bigay ng flyer sa tapat ng PRC. And look at what I have done. I have spread this business, 120 branches all over the country.
Origin stories. Now, Sir Carl, now let's transition into the meat of the discussion in terms of the election process. Can we talk about how you and Yorme got to know each other? When was the first time you got to hear about him or meet him, have a proper conversation about him? And what led you to say you're doing very well in the realm of public education? You're doing very well in the realm of entrepreneurship. We're very aware of that. You have touched many lives. You have inspired many people with your speeches, with your optimism. At Mark, mamaya pag-usapan natin, pinapuno niyo daw yung buong Colosseum daw.
Philippine Arena.
I mean, that arena, exactly. So it takes certain level of charisma, right? And passion to make that happen. But alam natin yung politika natin is a very, very contentious arena. And some would even say, this is a snake lace. This is a very treacherous terrain, no? So why would you bakit ka sumabak sa ganitong talagang masakit sa ulo na issue? And in what way maybe Isko played a role in convincing you doing that? I know why in myself because I've talked to him, but I want our audience to understand bakit po kayo ay sumabak dito sa magulong.
Well, I've known Yorme when he was Vice Mayor of Manila. Inilapit ko sa kanya isang batang may biliary atresia. You know, it's a condition na kailangang operahan sa Taiwan and we were raising like 3.5 million. It's because of my kids who were really appealing. Magbenta daw kami ng kotse, magbenta daw kami ng properties para matulungan yung bata. So sabi ko, hindi kailangan yan. We'll look for resources. No? We did some fundraising, etc. Pinakilala ko kay Yorme, binigyan niya ng 1 million, nag-raise kami, umabot kami ng 2.5 million, pero hindi natin kaya kasi we were raising 3.5 billion. So balik ako sa kanya, sabi ko, hindi namin magagamit yung donation mo kasi hindi namin na-raise yung 3.5. Sabi niya, ilan pa ba kulang? Kako 1 million pa. Sabi niya, sige, papuntahin mo sa akin. Then he sponsored 2 million. That boy now is a 7-year-old boy. Doon ako humanga. Pero I had been watching Yorme's performance because I happen to have my main headquarters in Manila. And I admired him on what he did during the pandemic. I mean, as a health professional, nakita ko yung ospital niyang pinatayo, nakita ko yung bagong ospital ng Maynila. My God, pag nakita mo, mahiya yung labi ng St. Luke sa Quezon City sa ganda. Mahiya yung mga hotels.
Ay, wag kayang ganyan, mga QC.
I'm surprised if I'm in St. Luke sa ganun kaganda. Mahal naman kasi doon. Pero yung ibibigay mo ng libre, no? Ibang klase, no? So tapos nakita ko lahat yung ginagawa niya, yung road, yung lights, yung beautification, yung Metropolitan Theater, for example, na, alam mo yung area na yon na pinaganda niya. Sabi ko, wow, I wowed ako. Tapos ito, nung lumapit sa akin ng mga doktor, para itulak akong tumakbo, ang mga nurses, mga midwives, I rejected them. Pero when Doc Willie called me na, then Yorme called me na. At sabi lang sa akin ni Yorme, sabi niya gusto niya makausap ang pamilya ko kasi kontrabida nga yung pamilya ko dyan. Ang sabi lang niya sa mga anak ko over speakerphone is, mga anak, hirami namin ng tatay niyo ng 6 years. May aayusin lang kami sa gobyerno. Aber, ikaw Richard, anak kita, sinabihan ka ng gano'n, hihiramin ako for 6 years. May aayusin sa gobyerno para sa kanila din. Alam mo, it was a miracle of that evening na my family who used to discourage me became my family who supported me. And even my wife is a pediatrician, very conservative, no? Pero pumayag siya because we really felt na something can be done. I can do something.
May Doc Willie connection din pala eh.
Dr. Willie was quoted in saying na ako lang yung major supporter niya when he ran for senator. And we did not know each other before that. I watched him on TV. Pero I found him, I looked for him and offered my help. Sabi ko, Doc Willie, I need your help. And that's where I brought Dr. Willie in my classes, big classes. And I campaigned for him. If I had enough resources at that time, baka naging senador si Doc Willie.
Yeah, malapit na rin.
Malapit na rin siya noon.
Almost there. And Doc Carl, again, we'll go to you shortly, specifically on the issue of what you want to do in the Senate. But pansin ko kay Isko, no, he's very much surrounded the people in the medical profession. What's going on there? Is this because he believes in a technocratic, evidence-based approach to governance? What is there? Para may Doc Willie, andyan ka, di ba? I mean, like I can see a vice mayor ng Manila, di ba? So what's going on there?
It's buhay and kabuhayan kind of thing. Alam niya na magaling siya sa kabuhayan. I mean, hindi siya economist, pero kita niyo naman ginawa niya sa Maynila, di ba? Manila Zoo, magulat kami, ganun, di ba? In the middle of the pandemic, partida pa yun, ha? Pero yung buhay kasi is, you have to trust life to the professionals. Pero alam mo, ang bilin niya sa akin talaga nung tumawag siya. Hindi nga yung health ang push niya sa akin. Ang push niya sa akin, Carl, alagaan mo yung maliliit na negosyo. Kasi sabi nga niya, itong taong to, bata pa ako, pinakikinggan ko na to sa radyo eh. I mean, alam niya kung paano ko tulungan yung maliliit. At saka nakakatawa yan ha. Minsan tatawag yan sa akin, magre-refer lang na, Carl, i-guess mo naman tong magpapansit dito sa Tondo. Mga ganun siya. Nagre-refer siya sa akin ng mga guest para ma-promote. Buhay at kabuhayan. That must be the reason why he's surrounded by people like us. And you're right, no? Alam mo, yung Yorme nakilala natin, may humility siya to listen to the professionals and very evidence-based, very data-driven ang kanyang mga policy. Alam mo, yung pinresent niyang 10-year yung kanyang 10-point agenda, nung pinresent niya, I was there when we were finalizing it. Alam mo, ang tanong niya doon sa team, can you please double-check on the data? Ayokong sumablay tayo sa data. Make sure that all of these data are factual. Fact check. At kaya, maski we can even cite the source of all these data.
Right. Yeah, napansin ko yun. So ngayon, kamusta po so far ang experience niyo from the moment you have entered the race? How is the election process treating you so far? Although medyo malapit na yung formal election process na magsimula.
Well, the listening tour did us a great favor. Talagang it led us to understand and appreciate the needs and the wants and the aspirations of the Filipino people. Hindi lang naman kasi pwedeng puro needs, may aspirations sila, no? And that gave us also the chance to be connected to them. I'm learning a lot, even more. Alam mo, ang conclusion ko, the wisdom of the poor is the solution to our problem. Yeah, there is such a thing as the wisdom of the poor. I don't want to call them poor because they are just labeled to be poor, but as a matter of fact, they're so rich with solutions to their current concern. Hindi lang siguro talaga naiintindihan, but it takes an Isko Moreno, someone from there, and it takes some professionals like us to really connect the dots of what can be done. Matagal na kasi natin pinag-uusapan yung problema eh. Ang problema, tinambayan kasi natin yung problema eh. So kailangan huwag natin tambayan. Let's look for the solution.
Or may mga tao nagbe-benefit dun sa problema. Ay, naalala ko dun sa isang talk namin ni Isko, parang sabi niya, may mga politiko dyan, gusto nila yung mga tao maninatili sa mga squatter, etc. They don't want to give them dignity and upward mobility because mas madali sila i-control. So unfortunately, there are people benefiting from keeping people from fully realizing kanilang best potentials. At doon ko na-appreciate saan galing si Isko. Sabi niya, yan ang ayaw ko mangyari because I want others to experience the upward mobility I experienced myself. And that for me, that was one of the things that got my attention early on nung hindi pa siya nag-declare ng presidency.
Actually, sasabihin ko sa iyo, ang beneficiary ng kahirapan is yung masasamang ugaling politiko. Alam mo kung bakit? Magsorti ka nang hindi ka magbibigay ng bigas. Magsorti ka na wala kang iaabot. May dadating ba sa yung mayaman doon para makinig? 'Di ba? I mean, let's get real. No? Pero ang sa akin doon, kami sa totoo lang, no? Ako when I feel that na yung mga tao nandito, maybe they are longing that we will give something or maybe we're giving something, I don't know. But you know what? At the end of the day, pag tumungtong ako doon, sisiguraduhin ko na pag yung 5 minutes o 10 minutes na binigay mo sa akin, uuwi yan na may baon yan na motibasyon, may baon yan na pag-asa. Kasi nandala namin. At yan din na napapala nila. Pag nakita nila yung Isko Moreno, kasi ang hindi ko makakalimutan sinasabi ni Yorme Iscuan. Pag ako naging presidente, pwede na rin kayong mangarap na ang anak nyo magiging mayor, magiging presidente. Sinasabi niya yon. And he's a proof of progress.
Exhibit A.
Exhibit A. He's a proof. He's really an exhibit B of prosperity. You know, prosperity in my book, I wrote a book called Prosperity. And the last line in that book is, prosperity is what others become because of you. You know, prosperity is what others become because of you. And you know, that's what the Isko Moreno life is. It's what others have become because of him. Like what I will become because of him. If he did not choose me, if he did not convince me, would there be a Carl Balita senator? No. I mean, if other parties, other presidentiables will invite me, I'll be reluctant, to be honest. I'll be very reluctant. But when the Isko Moreno is the one who invited me, even my youngest kid gave me permission to run. Why? Because he's the exhibit A of prosperity and progress.
Right.
And faith, hope, and love.
Right.
That we mentioned earlier.
Please go ahead, Mark.
I-share ko lang din kasi I was able to join of course yung Team Isko from the very start. So I was able to see yung kay Dr. Carl yung transformation din Parang we always talk about it sa vlog ko yung sa mga listening tours, Dr. Carl, na nung bago tayo nag-ikot, 'di ba? Mostly nung unang interview sa inyo puro mga mga theoretical and mga ang gaganda ng mga ideas, data-driven na mga policy solutions. Tapos the more na yung aming listening tour, parang mas nakakakonekta siya do sa tunay na nangyayari sa bawat sulok ng bansa.
Evolve, no?
Oo, nag-evolve and even how we speak doon sa mga
Alam mo, Mark, ang galing na observation mo. Remember ang una nating tour was in Tarlac? Yeah? Remember the Tarlac, nakaharap namin mga farmers? Alam mo, paano ba naman, Richard? Saan ba ako, di ba nagtuturo ako sa graduate school? Ang tinuturoan ko yung mga doctorate students for business administration ng, di ba, ng
audience, iba. Yeah.
Iba yung audience, no?
Exactly.
Although sanay ako sa radyo, sanay ako sa teleradyo na binababa ko yung lengguwahe ko, pero yung face-to-face, iba yun.
Iba pa rin.
Alam mo talagang I was so frustrated of myself, no? Nasabi ko, I knew na hindi ako nakakonect. Pero nung nakinig ako even more, you know, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. The secret really of communication is listening. You know, when we started listening and we started, you know, connecting our brain, our head with our hearts.
Right.
Wow, it's amazing. It's amazing. This is something I would cherish for the rest of my life. No, win or lose, I'm already a winner. No, just by being in this learning journey.
Transformative experience. Yeah.
Very, very much. You know, but let me tell you something. If I lose, I'll just go back to business. I'll just go back to teaching as a more empowered and enriched person, and probably in business more popular brand that I was compared with what I was. But you know, if
walang lose dito sa inyo.
Walang lose.
There's no lose here. It's just a matter of which win. Yeah.
But let me tell you, Richard, if I win, the gain is not only the kind of service that I'm committed to deliver.
Which is what we're going to talk about now.
You know what's the gain? Ito dito ko na surprise. Did you know that some of my friends are calling me now and are telling me, and because they're observing me, sabi niya, Carl, pag nanalo ka, one of my friends told me, Carl, pag nanalo ka, tatanggap na ako ng government position, which I have rejected over the years. Somebody even said, one old luminary in the professional world said, and professional world said, Carl, if you win, am I too old to run? And I asked him why. Why? Alam mo sabi niya, because if you win, you are a proof that the Filipinos are considering somebody like us.
Yeah, alternative.
Alternative.
Something
Because
different.
we're technocrats, we're scientists. We're
Right,
men and women of science.
right.
And the academe, meron akong kilala na former university president that said na, alam mo Carl, matatakbo na ako kahit konsihal, makatulong lang sa gobyerno pag nanalo ka. Sabi niya noon. I mean, I could be such an inspiration for people who are very afraid or don't have the courage to actually try, even try. Diba? Paano ka
Parang
naman
barrier breaker eh. Parang barrier breaker talaga to eh.
Trailblazer, you know what?
Trailblazer, pioneer, yeah.
Sino ba namang, sorry, excuse my term, pero sino ba namang matinong tao ang babangga sa mga billionaires in this race? I cannot even afford the television ads, to be honest.
Right.
Diba? And the others are just having so much of it. Well, it's not their problem that I don't have that resource or I'm not willing to spend that amount. It's really about, hey, I don't want to invest the money that would drive me to corruption later on because I'll be standing against it. The difference is that my moral compass is my family. And you know what? To hold 3 licenses, that means I read 3 codes of ethics. Because every profession is governed by code of ethics. So I know ethics. And I have not only my license to lose like a professional, but I have my sector which pushed me to even lose. If I will be, corrupted by this government. So parang ganoon. Pag nagpakain ako ng sistema, ang kalaban ko yung sektor na nagtulak sa akin.
Magbo-blow back na yan. And Doc Carl, bakit Senado ang pinili nyo? Anong meron sa Senado at anong gusto nyong gawin sa Senado? And why do you think it will make really a huge difference? Aside from the things you have mentioned a while ago as being a role model yourself, right?
Yeah. Yung laws kasi, sabi ko nga kung walang pandemya, walang Carl Balita running eh. And the disruption, the disruptions in the way we live in almost every areas of our life, yun ang magre-require ng revisitation of all the laws that we have. Sabi ko nga yung first topic natin, mental health. We have a mental health law. Not a very old law. But if you look into that law, ang daming kailangang ayusin. Even our educational system, ang daming batas, maraming kailangang ayusin. If we want to be in the better normal, I don't want to use new normal because in new normal, we're just accepting it like a bitter pill. I want this as a better normal. You know what? Because if the future will not be better, then what for are all these sacrifices and all these lessons that we hard earned from the pandemic experience, diba? So, dun ako. Very happy to offer myself. It's Senate, you know why? Because there are, by the way, tinanggihan ko ang party list. 3 party list, I have refused. Kasi yung senators ko konti 24. So your voice will not be drowned in the wilderness. So when a senator stands up, the voice is heard. I just wish that more senators are capable of standing up. Because
True.
Because if I ask you, who can stand up? Then we should start really electing people who could stand up. For whom? Not for those who can stand up for themselves, but for those who could barely stand up for themselves, literally and figuratively. You see, those who are least lost and last in the society. I mean, the poor, the marginalized, and the victims, the micro enterprises. I don't care about yung large. They can hire good lawyers to protect them. What about the micro? You see, the teachers. The teachers. We want to invest on the teachers. Sila ang pinakamababa sweldo. As professionals, then how do we attract the best and the brightest? Diba? Na-chismis na sila yung maraming utang. Hindi lang teacher, lahat. Ang daming Pilipino maraming utang. Because financial literacy becomes our weakness. Diba? Hindi tayo tinuruan kung paano tayo humawak ng pera. Tinuruan lang tayo nung paano maging employable. Diba? Mga ganung bagay. So I want to correct those. And that's why I want to be there in the Senate.
Maraming salamat. Mark, do you have a question to add? Kasi alam ko lampas sa 1 hour. Yes.
I remember lang na parang you told me dun sa una kong interview sa'yo na if ever papalarin and you become elected as a senator, you are ready from day one sa mga bills na you will push for, and ano ba yung mga priority na bills na from day one yung kaagad yung isusulong nyo sa
Number one, kailangan natin ng EDCOM. EDCOM happened how many decades ago? It led to a lot of changes in our educational system. Yung nag-trifocalize tayo, yung dating DEX, naghiwa-hiwalay, etc. Now, we have 4 reasons to call for the EDCOM. Number 1, we need to check the value of the EDCOM 1. Number 2, we have to look into the K-12. Number 3, we have to look into the Industry 4.0, which we were afraid of even prior to the pandemic. And number 4, we have to look at the post-pandemic education, EDCOM. Importante yon. Number 2, we have to make sure that we have a good budget for the universal health care law. It's a beautiful law, but we have to make sure that the oversight function of the Senate, as a health professional, I'll make sure that it's going to work, because we have failed with primary health care, which was started in the 1970s. No, marami tayong failures dyan. We don't want the universal health care law. And of course, one of the most important law that the senator and legislators pass is the budget. Kahit paanong ganda niyang batas na yan, kung walang budget, patay tayo dyan. And of course, the Micro Enterprise Commission, so that pwede nating alalayan yung pivots and yung resurrection of the dead micro enterprises. Ako yung tatlo lang sa KKK ko, yung tatlong yun ang priority ko. I mean, each of them. And by the way, universal health law will also ensure, universal health care will also ensure that there is mental health consideration. I'm very passionate about it, and you know why. We talked about it off the air kanina, pero I'm very passionate about it. The more I'm convinced that we have to look into it. The promotive and the preventive aspect of our healthcare will have to be strengthened. And by the way, that's the specialty of nurses. Right. Promotive and preventive healthcare. Yan pong specialty namin mga nurses. Yung curative, rehabilitative, sa doctor yon. Yeah. Pero yung promotive, preventive, amin yon. And that's what I'm bringing in the Senate.
Right. Thank you very much. Siguro ang inisip ko dyan, build back better. No? Siguro medyo may pagkaganon. Diba? If we're gonna build back better, hindi lang back to previous normal na marami ng problema, but we want to really up the game when it comes to our healthcare system, among others. I'm sure we can go on forever. I love the energy. Maraming salamat, Doc Carl. I really enjoy it. I'm glad to see all these years, andyan pa rin yung passion, andyan pa rin yung dedication nyo. And as much as you're passionate and fiery, I can also see this compassion that actually calms you down. So I don't know kung ito yung plant na sa likod niyo na nakikita ko. Is it the timing or nasa Kalinga po kayo? Ako, Baguio boy ako. So, that's a special part of the country to me, of course, in many ways. Maraming salamat, Dr. Carl Balita, for joining us. Public educator, social entrepreneur, and kung papalarin po kayo, the next senator of the Philippines, and the first person, I think, with the registered nursing background to be there as one of the big voices of the country in the highest chambers of our legislature. Maraming salamat again, Dr. Carl Balita, and hope to get back to you soon, and hopefully even in better circumstances and in person. Maraming salamat and God bless.
Yeah. In closing, 12 naman yung pipiliin nila. Ano ba naman yung isama nila yung isang...
Oo naman. Exactly.
Isang
Unlike Presidente, di ba? Unlike Presidente. Meron kayong maraming choice. At saka yun yung problema, again, na mapadagdag. I think usually people just remember 7 or 8. Minsan kulang nga, di ba? So I hope people go beyond that. And yes, please don't forget our guests, especially the ones who I think pasok sila dun sa mga values na you advocate for, at saka yung kailangan talaga nating bansa. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The honor is mine. Thank you.
My pleasure. God bless.